And we are live for this week's special edition of Fleetcast. I am joined by the lovely Endy as per usual when we review the animated series. And as you can see, some things look a little bit different. With the changes that we're doing, with us having different parts to play in this podcast, we've been changing the scenes up. So you'll see that the next episode of the Doctor Who episode has a slight change to it. Uh, but what have you been up to, Andy? How have you been doing?
Uh, I've kind of been up to living. Uh, as said before, work, writing, all the wonderful things that we do.
Yes.
Um, Personal stuff at home has been going okay. It's been a good week.
Oh,
How about
that's
you?
good.
Yeah.
It's good to hear. It's been the same here because though this episode doesn't come out for another 2 weeks, we are like a week away from Kittimer. So I've been doing a lot of stuff for Kittimer. This has been a very, very, very busy week. We've been organising the panels, we've been organising the live broadcasting of the voice panels, make our jobs slightly easier. So they will be beaming as they are going straight to YouTube. So that should be
That will
interesting.
be fun.
That should
Will
be
be fun.
interesting. But I do want to give a quick plug to the people that have been supporting us and who are supporting the endeavour with the Kittimer live streaming, which is the NerdyUpNorth podcast. They are a bunch of Northern nerds that review and discuss and are just amazing human beings. So if you haven't had the chance to check them out, all that information is below. They are just fantastic humans, and they're the reason why we are now doing this, over YouTube because we've just been using Spotify and Anchor for the last 2 years. And they gave me, the push to do it. So just want to thank them, and especially Paul, because he literally has just messaged me about 20 minutes ago saying, if I can help anything with Kittimer, he will do. So, he's one of our biggest
That's
fans.
that is wonderful. And actually, since you've just commented on Nerdy Up North, Chris from Nerdy Up North, just want to shout out the comment. Uh, Glad you didn't know about the Godzilla War. Glad you could learn something. Um, and also, again, about our supporters, Cam. Thank you for the comments about yesteryear. And I hadn't even thought of comparing it to a bar mitzvah, the Kazwan ordeal. But when you look at it, it really is. And it's one more piece of the Vulcans are just coded Jews. But I I really appreciate the support that we've been getting, the comments we've been getting, and I hope that people continue to engage and be interested in this and in the animated series as a whole.
Yes. So that leads us into the episodes that we are reviewing today. So the first episode we are reviewing is episode 5, and it's called More Tribbles, More Troubles. Going into this episode, I was a bit like, a Tribble episode. This should be interesting because one of the only episodes that I've watched of the original series is a Tribble episode. But I wasn't convinced that we were going to have as many callbacks to the
Oh,
original episode.
well, actually, I can comment on that because this was written by David Gerrold, who wrote the original Trouble with
Ah,
Tribbles.
that's interesting.
And originally, it was a spec script for season 3 of the original series.
Ah,
And it has a lot in common with that episode.
yeah,
It's, to me, where you say all these callbacks, I'm like, can I get something new, please?
yeah.
And yet,
I think because I've only seen what 4 episodes of the original series, maybe.
is it 3 or is it 4?
I think it's 4.
Okay,
I think
we
it's
need
4.
to we
Yeah.
need to increase that number. We need to watch it together, you and I.
Yes, it's on my to-do list, but I'm quite enjoying this little journey through the animated series, to be fair.
Me too.
Um, but yeah, I this episode was interesting. I didn't quite expect the callbacks, but I think the fact that we had callbacks within sort of like the first 10 minutes where I was like, oh, okay, because obviously the episode starts with the Enterprise escorting 2 robot cargo ships carrying the rice from what, the
Wheat.
corn. Was it the corn?
Wheat. Wheat.
Wheat.
And it's quintotetracale,
I'm
which
not.
is
I'm not even going to
which
try
is
it.
an upgrade, of course, to quadrotetracale, which was on the original episode.
Yes, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that grain. And obviously they go into
I'll get it.
Sherman's planet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just found it really interesting that instantly they encounter a Klingon battle cruiser. And obviously it starts firing on the scout ship. But the Enterprise beams the pilot from the scout ship on board. And I didn't expect who it was. I did not expect it to be Jones whatsoever. And
Okay.
I was really happy it was him.
Yes. And actually, one thing that I love about this episode is that they brought back um they brought back uh, uh Stanley Adams. Sorry. I have names here. They brought back Stanley Adams for Cyrano Jones.
Yes,
And he really still feels like he's doing the same role. He's
yes.
doing a great job at it.
The
And
animation
later
was
on,
so good for him.
it really was. And I mean, and the thing is that in a few episodes, we're going to get to the return of another beloved guest host from Trek.
Okay,
One of the only ones who was on 2 episodes, in fact,
okay.
and had
We'll have
episodes
to
named
wait and
after him.
see. To wait and see. No spoilers.
Yep.
I'm on a
Okay.
journey, and I'm enjoying the journey. Let's not spoil it for me.
Okay. Okay.
But what I didn't quite trig in this episode was whether it was the same Klingon.
Okay. It is supposed to be the same Captain Koloth, but they didn't get William Campbell.
Is it
Do you
voiced
know
by
who's voicing?
Scotty?
Hmm?
Is it voiced by the Scotty? Because
Yes.
I've literally got in my notes Scottish Klingon, huh? That's
Yes, it
literally
is.
yes,
Yes, it is doing. And the thing that I dislike, I mean, I am kind of glad that they kept Arik silent in this episode because of how similar his Koloth is to Arik's. Because that's just, he has a great voice. Doohan has a great voice and
yeah.
a great range. But after a certain period of time, you can only do so many voices,
Yes, and
unfortunately.
I twigged that, and I was like, I'm sure that's
Mm-hmm.
him. I'm sure that's him. Um, but it was interesting. Obviously, the robot ship's been well, it's not been destroyed, but it's been compromised.
Disabled.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so they
they blew
obviously
up the nacelles.
yeah, so they bring all the grain onto the ship.
Right.
Um, and
Well,
what I quite like about this scene is, even though it's a very quick scene, it kind of shows you how tight the ship can be because you
mm-hmm.
have you have barrels in the corridors, you have the barrels they're here, they're in everywhere, and then it,
Yep.
it kind of interplays with the fact that we've then got the tribbles in the
Yes.
cargo in the transporter room,
Yes.
and it's a really nice callback to the last couple of moments
Yes.
of the last Tribble episode
Yes.
where Jones has been left on the starbase and he's basically been told that he's got to stay there until he gets rid of all the Tribbles. And then we get this little alien.
Yep. The
Who
Glommer.
what sorry?
The Glommer.
The Glommer, yeah. And I find the alien quite cute. I almost
Oh yeah.
wanted to take him home with me. But we find that this alien has the ability to get rid of tribbles, and obviously Jones is proclaiming that the tribbles, then they're harmless. They're genetically modified to not
To not breed. Yeah.
yeah to not breed and everything. And I find it just really funny that within 2 minutes these tribbles have escaped the transporter room and they are literally after the grain, and you can see these tribbles getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and
Yep.
it's
I
brilliant.
I actually do want to jump back a bit.
Yep.
Um, to the first time that the Klingon superweapon is brought up.
Yes.
When the ship is immobilized, um, there's two things about that scene that I really enjoy. The first one is, as I've said, I played Starfleet battles. I like Starfleet Command. So the Klingon super weapon, the immobilizer, later became part of that. And it's also part of the Mauler and the idea that the Klingons are kind of that first strike glass cannon strategy where they will make their first attack and it will be devastating and overwhelming,
Yeah.
but there's not going to be anything left in the tank for round two.
Well, this is
Um,
kind of why I thought it was going to be the Romulans, because obviously I've only seen a very small amount of episodes. So
mhm,
my brain kept thinking back to the super weapon the Romulans used.
okay,
And obviously that was the weapon that
that's a that's just a plasma torpedo. Those become standard issue.
is it not is yeah, eventually, but obviously it just I my brain kept thinking back to that weapon where
Okay.
the Romulans drained their weapons so much because they were
Hmm.
that
Yeah,
scene that I'm on about. So
I hear you. Yeah.
that was my brain thinking back to that, and I was thinking it's the type of issues that we don't have in newer series. So we don't have it in the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. I can't
Yeah.
remember if we have it as an issue in Enterprise.
We
Um,
were su- we were supposed to have it as an issue in Voyager, and then they decided somehow 38 photon torpedoes could become 38,000.
well, yeah, but it
uh,
kind of surprises me that it's an issue, and I kind of like the fact that we see that it's the start of this type of weapon and them trying to test things out. I kind of just like that we're not in this period where the weapons work straight away, and it's not
yes.
draining on the ship. I really like that as a concept, and I
And
think it's not used enough in
yeah,
writing.
and the logistics of they're developing new weapons. It's not just stagnant from the original series.
Yeah.
Um, but one line from this episode, just right at the beginning, the fact that Uhura is the one to go, well, we can always throw rocks.
Yeah.
She's really, again becoming that sort of feisty one in the ship,
Yeah.
who is our, you know, half of the audience surrogate, and also she's leading into what she would later become in the movies. And I really appreciate that kind of space that they're giving her to develop,
Yeah, I kind of
even with that offline or whatever.
yeah, I feel like she's definitely becoming a more stable character in the fact that they are
Mm-hmm.
using her better, and she doesn't seem to be changing each episode. She's very much growing. And I can see that just from obviously the 5 episodes that I've watched. And
Yep.
I really like that. I feel very much that she is that character's surrogate, and yeah, it's fun to
Yeah.
watch. But yeah,
Yes.
so yes, this episode is
I,
very it's
and also getting into that same scene, the detail on the Klingon D7s. It's another one of those. Maybe you could have done it in live action. Maybe you could have done it with a model. Matt Jeffries was a wizard.
yes.
Andrew Probert was great. But the fact that we see the symbol of the Klingon Empire pretty much for the first time here
I
on the
really liked how the ships looked, and I was impressed.
yes, they are very well done, and it's obvious that the people who were drawing this at Filmation actually paid attention to the model sheets,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that. I really respect it, and I'm glad that we're finally seeing that, again.
Yeah, it's good to see this brought to life, because I don't think the original series and the episodes that I've seen did as good a job as what we are able to see with the animation. It's just
Yeah,
really good. Um, but
great.
yes, getting back to the episode, I feel very much like Jones has become a main character in this episode. I very much
Oh
feel
yeah,
like we see him more than we see McCoy, we see Scotty, even Uhura and Spock. I feel very much they take a back seat to Jones. Um,
Mhm.
and obviously, the Klingons then attack the Enterprise again.
Yes.
Um, and obviously, they disabled the engines on the remaining robot cargo ship. And then bathing the Enterprise in radiation, which sort of rapidly increases the growth of the tribbles on board, which I think is absolutely brilliant. I
Yes.
literally just love the tribbles in this episode. I
Agreed.
I want the tribble. I want to bring a tribble home, and I just want to squish it and cuddle it and just
You want that big tribble from the captain's chair?
yes, you know
Because I love, by the way,
why?
I love that sight gag where the first time Kirk just brushes him off the
Yeah,
yeah, Kirk just brushes it off the chair, and then comes back, has to give it a little more force,
yes. This is the
and
first
then
episode
boom,
that I actually felt like it was a
it comes.
comedy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
this is definitely pretty much the comic episode of the animated series,
yeah,
and I think where TOS did very well with its comedy, TAS is trying to do more drama
yeah,
and is trying to explore the setting more. Because the thing with this series is that Roddenberry and other showrunners wanted to do things that they could never do in live action.
yeah,
So you're seeing more interesting alien designs. You're seeing more developed ideas here.
yeah,
Um, I mean, the fact that we're seeing the Klingons not quite to the point they would be in 77, but we're starting to see, forehead definition on the Klingons. We're starting to see cultural definition of the Klingons.
yeah,
Um, he's trying to push that as much as he's trying to push a little bit of comedy and a little bit of lightness, because, as I said in yesteryear, and I think in one other, they don't talk down to the audience in
no,
this series, which is great.
yeah,
I love the comedy. I love the moments where it all works.
yeah,
We see the tribbles, and then Bones, you didn't treat this one. Yes, I did.
yeah,
you
yeah. Truly,
know,
truly, my notes end with this episode. I felt like it was a comedy.
it
Um,
was right.
but yeah, I just find this episode very interesting because obviously, as it moves on, we realise that the Klingons aren't really after Jones. They actually want the
Good.
alien that he's that he's got.
Yes, yes,
Because this
and
alien will be able to help their planet get rid of the tribbles. Um, so
and the thing with this also, the one unsatisfying point on this episode that kind of comes in retrospect is how easy Jones gets off from this,
yeah,
because he stole from the Klingons,
yes,
but no repercussions happen to him.
yeah,
They don't mention, oh, but you're going to jail, by the way.
yeah,
You know, obviously, I think that he probably would have off camera,
yeah.
but there's no comment from the crew of,
Yeah, it ends
you,
with a scene with the callback to the tribbles falling out of the
yeah,
Dreyfus tube onto
out of the green chute. Yeah,
yeah, it just that it kind of just ends there. And I don't know whether
yes.
that was just done for comedy effect.
Oh, it was both. It was the callback and the comedy effect, especially getting Koloff buried in them,
Hmm.
because it's Kirk got buried in them the first time. Now both captains are buried in them.
Yeah,
Um, Another sort of part of the drama part of this episode. Kirk says the first Klingon that sets foot on this ship will be the last.
yeah,
He makes good on that
yeah,
in the movies. In Star Trek 3, he makes good on that.
yeah,
Because that's one of the fun things about this series is how much, if you've seen the movies, how much they call forward to the movies. I have in my notes, I don't remember Trials and Tribulations from DS9, but even if Worf did go aboard the Enterprise and wasn't just on K7, he doesn't count as a Klingon because he's also a Starfleet officer.
I don't remember that he does go on the Enterprise, but
Mhm.
it doesn't. Obviously, it has been about over a decade since I've
Yeah.
seen his episodes, so he could, for all I remember. But yeah, I find the fact that the comedy isn't just on the Enterprise; it's on the Klingon vessel as well. And
Oh
obviously,
yeah.
we get that moment where it's what's the alien called? Glamour,
Glommer.
Glamour.
Yeah.
He's
Because it
confronted,
gloms down the. Yeah. Hmm?
you know,
Oh yeah, when it gets frightened of the
the
of
tribbles.
the,
It
the
kind of
tribble and does the wheel run. Yes,
yes.
that is great.
I just find that so funny, and I think this has probably been one of my favorite episodes that I've watched so far. Um, Not just because I've watched the original series, but just the fact that it was comedy. It didn't
Yes,
quite feel as serious, maybe. And
yes.
maybe it's just my
I,
juvenile sense of humor. Um,
I don't think it's a
but
juvenile sense of humor here. I think it's a very well developed sense of humor in this episode, at
you
least.
know, British sense of humor, it could be. It did
A
very
bit.
much. I did very much like it, and that is why I've given it 5 tribbles out of 5 because I really enjoyed this episode. Yes.
I I gave it 4 giant tribbles out of 5.
Okay.
Because and it's only drawn down by a few things.
Okay.
Um, the biggest one being that they didn't get William Campbell back.
Yeah.
Okay, Koloth's voice throws me a bunch of times. Um, there's also just a few little things like the fact that it doesn't have a lot new to it. Um, and the moment that Spock says we could always throw tribbles at them, echoing what Uhura had said,
Yeah.
you know where the tribbles are going to end up by the end
Oh,
of the episode.
100%.
So it just there's a lot where I feel like David Gerrold and his team should have done better
Yeah.
with the writing, and I feel like if they had gotten William Campbell, that would have been even better.
Yeah.
Still,
Yeah.
that would have taken it up to being a really great episode and not just a really fun romp, which is
Yeah.
what it is to me.
Yeah, and to me, I think obviously we're looking at very different points of views. I'm looking at it as a little fun episode that I've been able to call back to a previous episode, and
Yep.
obviously, and I'm also calling it forward to DS9 because though I haven't seen
Yep.
that episode in a while, I'm able to kind of
It, it's still there, right?
yeah, and I've also named this trio of episodes the Triple Trio. Um,
Yes.
you know, we've
We
got
need
the
more tribbles.
yes, we've got the it's the triple trilogy. Um,
Yes.
it was a fun episode.
It was.
And
Absolutely
and
was.
I think it was more one of the easier watches I've had. While watching the animated series, I kind of sat here while Tiny One was watching her own television, her headphones in.
Okay.
But she also kept coming over, going, "That's Spock. Oh, that's Kirk." She recognized.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
So
am so glad.
yeah, so she
What
was
did
able
she?
to recognize the characters, and I thought that was quite good that she was able to do that
Does
because
she now want a stuffed tribble?
she probably would. To be fair, she probably would want one, and
Yeah.
we could have a giant one. I think one of those giant ones.
Exactly.
Yeah, we could
Exactly.
definitely
Just get a big squishy tribble, and there you go. Put it
yes,
in the middle of the living room.
yes, it would be interesting. Okay, so we're gonna get into the next episode.
Yep. And
Um,
this is the beginning of a trilogy for me. The trilogy of episodes I'm not a huge fan of,
yes,
unfortunately.
yes. Obviously, I've only seen this one episode. I haven't seen any further.
Right.
So yeah, so
Okay. There's a couple of meta text things about it that I'm gonna say.
okay,
The first one is I want you to understand this is me being annoying and nitpicky.
right,
All of the other star dates up to now have been 5500 something.
okay,
This is stardate 5143.3.
right.
which takes us back before the beginning of this season into season 3 of original series,
Oh,
in
okay.
between the empath and the Mark of Gideon.
Right.
So this is in a lot of ways not in continuity with, let's say, more troubles, more troubles. This
Okay.
is happening well before that, except the problem is they didn't care, and it gets worse in the coming episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's one of the things that gets me with this episode.
Right.
Uh, the other thing is that while you could say that more troubles, it falls into this sort of subgenre of Trek. I'm not a huge fan of stranger comes aboard the ship, knows people, and then makes havoc.
Yeah. I can
Okay,
understand that one.
there are a lot of episodes like that, and don't get me wrong, the drumhead also falls into it, and that's a great episode of Next Generation. But just as a whole, I'm not a huge fan,
Yeah.
and so that's where this comes in. Now, this is the introduction of a character who I like,
Okay.
and it's a reference to a character who got cut out of TOS season 3.
Right.
So there are bright spots.
Okay.
All right. Um, because let's just kind of jump in. Um, the Enterprise rescues a ship, which unfortunately this is again where we see a little bit of a slump. It's the same model ship as the one that Cyrano Jones was piloting.
I thought that, but I wasn't 100% sure.
It is. It's the same animation model,
Right.
which, on one hand, okay, it makes sense because Federation ship classes should look the same.
Yeah.
Like this behind me here is an Excelsior class. It will always be,
Yeah.
and all Excelsior class ships should look the same. Um, it just feels like in animation they cheaped out on
Yeah.
this one. But uh, then they bring aboard a guy where you don't know anything about him, but the crew obviously do.
Yes.
Carter Winston,
Yes.
a space trader with a huge fortune, one of many original series references to money in the Federation,
Yeah.
which I find interesting at this point.
Yes, because I think it's always been a discussion as writers in the Trek universe
Mhm.
is do they have credits? Do they have this? How did it work out? What is this? There's nothing
Right,
that's ever been established properly around it.
exactly. My feeling is that in the original series era up to the movies, they have money,
Yeah.
and kind of by the time of Star Trek 4, they're sort of transitioning to a more moneyless, at least internally, a more moneyless society and a more egalitarian
Yeah.
society. Because at this point, there's still scarcity. And it's not just accidental scarcity. Like, we've seen famines in Next Generation, in
Yeah.
DS9, Voyager. Um, but those are catastrophic or accidental or whatever else you want to call it. This one, there are resource shortages.
Yeah.
We had last episode, Sherman's planet needed that grain.
Yes.
In this one, the planet Cerberus needed food, and Carter Winston spent some of his vast fortune to save the people there.
Which brings
And
which brings up a question because I didn't realize McCoy had a daughter.
that's the that's what I was about to comment on. McCoy's daughter Joanna was originally going to appear in TOS, in fact, was written into an episode in season 3, The
Right.
Way to Eden, where she would come aboard the Enterprise, things would happen, and she would end up in Kirk's arms.
All right.
But she was switched out for the character Irina, and then Irina was decided to fall into Chekhov's arms instead.
Fair enough.
So they didn't immediately say that this character doesn't exist, but they completely took out the reference to McCoy having a daughter.
Yeah.
And I like that this restores it, and I like the fact that she sort of kind of exists. In fact, when McCoy comments on his ex-wife at one point in one of the movies, he doesn't comment on his daughter, but then again, why would he comment on his daughter when he's being bitter?
But yeah, no, it kind of threw me for a second. I was like, oh, he's got a daughter. Oh, okay. No, I don't remember any of these mentions before, but it did kind of make the character slightly better in my mind. He kind of
Okay.
doesn't, because I always find that McCoy is very, I don't want to say bitter, but he's very standoffish, maybe. In the episodes that I've
Yes,
seen. In the episodes that I've seen, he's very
he
standoffish.
can be.
And
He can be.
yeah,
He
I feel
warms up
like
in
this
other episodes.
yeah, I feel like that stray sentence makes him
Mhm.
kind of feel a little bit more human. But I do find that it's very, very odd that Spock is the only person who is following the process and demands ID and things like that.
Well, I feel like in that one, Kirk wasn't not following it. He was just being the captain. He
Yeah,
was welcoming the guy aboard. Um, Spock is the one who always follows protocol, so
yeah,
Kirk can sort of ease off.
yeah, maybe.
McCoy, and as you said, this humanizes McCoy in that he has this, um, you know, gratitude toward Carter Winston,
Yeah,
and I mean, this is also him being sort of that old Southern country doctor.
yeah,
So to him, this is family. This is returning a favor done to his family.
yeah.
So it's like, come on, the man's a living legend. Why are you saying that
Yeah.
he's this, that, or the other? And it's like, I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying this is the plot.
Yeah, but
You know?
I think I got the vibe very early in this episode that he wasn't who he said he was,
Oh
or at
yeah.
the very least he something wasn't quite right.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously that feeling gets better, bigger as we go to sick bay and
Mm-hmm.
McCoy's instruments don't work in the way that he
Yeah.
expects them to.
Yeah.
And then obviously, and then we've got what I think is one of the most brutal scenes I've seen in the animated series so far is
Yes.
his well, his fiance is on board, thankfully. Imagine that luck. Um,
How isn't that convenient?
and
Right.
obviously he breaks up with her in a really brutal way.
Oh
And
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
brutal.
It's harsh, and this is one of the things I dislike about this episode is how much this guy does to the woman, and yeah, the breakup is brutal, and what he does later about it is,
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, I've
but
put it on my notes as that's a bit of a harsh dump. Um,
yes,
it's
that's
very, very
ouch.
British. It's a bit harsh.
Yeah,
Um, my notes are
that's an understatement.
my notes are very British. I'm not gonna lie. I one of these days I might just scan them so you guys can just have a little journey through my thought process as I'm
I
watching
do want to
them.
see them. Yes, or
Thank
we
you.
should have a shared G doc on one of these
Yes, I
episodes.
think we should. Because obviously within obviously this
But
scene, you know, the fiance she runs off, and he goes to. Well, I thought he went to Kirk's office, but it turns out it was Kirk's
quarters.
quarters.
Well, okay. In the original series, while technically the ship may have had a ready room,
Yeah.
um, you mostly see Kirk doing business out of his quarters.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, he's going to Kirk's quarters where Kirk is filing the incident report, doing all the things. You know, he's been supposedly Carter's been checked out,
Yeah.
and then one of the bright points of this episode, and the reason I dislike this character. When the Vendorian unmasks himself
Hmm.
and then just grabs Kirk. We don't even see. I mean, it's interesting how easily he just knocks these guys out.
Yeah, and this was one of my points later on. Is obviously it's not just Kirk he does this to, but no one puts up a fight. Why do they not put up a fight? There is a computer on board. They can call out to the computer, surely.
Thank you. Yes, they could have used the biocomputer. I mean, bioscience. Duh. But oh
I don't
well.
I don't get it. But
But
quick in the computer, I do have a
yes,
little note that I've put in here because there is something I really like about this.
okay.
It's the little quirky computer voice. I love it.
Oh yeah, well that's Magel's computer voice. It
Yeah,
really is.
I love the fact it's a little quirky voice and it's just adorable and I really like it
Mhm.
and it's one of my
Well,
favorite things about it.
yep. I mean, it's great, and it's actually I think it's pretty much the same voice that she did in the original series when she spoke as the computer. It was rare.
Okay.
Um, if I will admit, I kind of prefer uh, the way she did for Next Generation, where it
Yeah,
feels a lot more natural.
yeah,
But yes, you're right. In this time period where we're still on tape, we're still on punch cards, we're still
yeah,
because that's the kind of era we're in. In fact, being the 70s at this point, we're transitioning from just punch cards to tapes and floppy disks
yeah,
and so on in the real world. So we're seeing that happen in Star Trek.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I agree with you.
Just quirky and I love it. And I think
Yeah, yes,
it's very showing for the time. But
mm-hmm.
yeah, I just like it and I think it's adorable. And
Yes,
I hope that I
yes.
hear it more going through this series because
I
it's
believe she talks a bit more. Yeah,
yeah,
but you'll hear a lot of Majel in this series
yes. Because
because
she plays Chapel, doesn't she?
she plays Chapel. She plays a lot of the incidental females. She also plays Maress. I think there's like two other characters that she voices regularly
Yeah,
because I mean this is one of those things where part of the reason why Majel voices so many characters, I feel I don't know if this is historically true or not, but it's theory. Um, Obviously, Gene and Majel got together with the breakup and
yeah,
so on when they were working together, right?
yeah,
During this time, Gene's assistant was a woman by the name of Sue Sackett, who was on set with him, well, not on set, but on like recording studio with him for this and so on. And Majel knew what had happened before and was not willing to let this happen again.
yeah. Can't blame
So she's the, yeah. So she was there all the time. As
Yeah.
you know, as I said, this is theory, but
It makes sense. And I'm saying this from a woman's point of view. It makes sense.
yes,
But yeah,
yes,
what I kind of I obviously like because obviously we've got Chapel in this episode and she is very efficient.
mm-hmm.
She is very
Oh
much
yes,
she's looking through the paperwork, she's looking at the instruments and she's saying nothing is wrong with this.
yes,
Um and then obviously then we
this,
go back to the bridge and
yes,
Kirk
yeah.
appears on the bridge.
Something I want to point out with the animation. The animators in this episode did an excellent job because something that I don't think a lot of people who are not into film will catch. Because have you ever like done any like film study or anything like that?
Yeah, it's media studies in secondary school
Oh, excellent.
and college.
Uh, Good. I had a focus in it too. The fact that they introduce Kirk and then uh, the later host of the Vendor, well, not host, the later duplicated person, and actually the later duplicates altogether in Dutch angle. The fact that they skew it, the animators actually put thought into it
Yeah,
and made it look cinematic, and
yeah,
I really appreciate that.
yeah.
When Kirk comes on the bridge, you know something is wrong, not because, it's still William Shatner.
Yeah.
And while the order he gives to go into the Romulan neutral zone is weird, stupid, and dangerous, he's given weird, stupid, and dangerous orders before
Yeah.
with a reason.
Yeah.
And in fact, he basically says it's life and death for this planet.
Yeah.
So, it's believable that Kirk would do this sort of thing. But because of the way it's shot, it's not Kirk.
Yeah, and I find it quite interesting that they've all followed the orders. They have a moment of doubt, but they, like we said in previous episodes, they are very much Starfleet officers. They follow the captain, and
Yes.
obviously then it leads us into the Romulan
Yes.
neutral zone, which yeah,
That's the thing.
it's a thing, and it kind of, yeah, you kind of get a moment of, oh, okay. And then obviously Kirk says to Spock, "You take the con," and then disappears. And
Yes.
then you get to
And
see,
I actually appreciate that moment. Um, and I like what happens later, sort of proving it. Um, the Vendorian is not a starship captain.
no,
He doesn't know how to do it.
no,
So he hands over the con in a dangerous situation to Spock.
yeah,
He doesn't, because the thing is that he knows that even if, as Kirk, he had surrendered the ship,
yeah,
there might have been trouble,
yeah,
and he wasn't qualified to do it.
yeah. Which I think you don't get to see that often in a situation like this. You
Yeah.
don't often see the alien know its limitations because it thinks it can fool everybody. Um,
Yeah. Oh,
yes,
he can fool everybody, but he can't do everything.
yeah,
And then um, when Kirk comes back up, I like that, his immediate response is, there's nothing wrong with my crew.
yeah.
So it must be something wrong with me. Why would I have given an order I wouldn't give? Why
But
do I not remember?
But what I liked about this is the fact they rewound the security footage
Mm-hmm.
and watched it. Like,
Yes.
I don't remember us seeing that in Star Trek before, that we actually get
Did
to
you
see
watch the
when.
Menagerie? Did you watch the Menagerie?
No, I don't think I've got that far.
Okay. The Menagerie is kind of a clip show of The Cage, which was the first pilot.
No, I haven't seen it. I've only seen parts of it when it's appeared in Discovery.
Or in Strange New Worlds, yeah.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it was in Discovery, and it must
Yeah.
there's some of it that appears in Strange New Worlds, but it appears in
Yes.
Discovery because it's how they fix Spock. They go back
Right.
to the planet from there. But yeah, that's the only
Right.
time I've really kind of seen that. But
Okay.
we
But
see it as a trial, don't we? I vaguely know that.
yes. Yes. We see it as a trial and it's kind of a clip show.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's the only time that really they have a recording that they play back.
yeah,
And I do like that. I agree with you. It just feels like it's something that would be so normal.
yeah. They've got
Like,
security cameras. Why do they not use that more?
exactly. And by the way, going back to Beyond the Farthest Star, that's what that apparatus is in the ceiling of the bridge. That's the camera. It's not a phaser, it's a camera.
But then why is
And
he
we
carrying
see it
a phaser? I've still got
because
questions.
good. I do not have an answer yet.
I've still got
I will come up
questions.
with one. I will come up with one of these days.
You've got
But
you've answered one question, but now
yes,
you've created another one. But yeah, and
yes,
what I also like about this scene is that I'm not 100% sure if it's now or if it's just in a few moments' time. Is we actually see the lady at the comms who isn't
yes.
Yahora, but she's a
Maress,
Mares. Is that what
vacation. Yes,
Mares?
yes.
We see
This is Maress. This is Magel's character.
yeah, and
And
this
in
is the
fact,
first.
Kirk names her and says, Lieutenant Maress, do such and such.
Yeah,
Yes,
and but
it's great.
obviously this is the first time that we see a Catian,
Yes,
and I really like the character, and I hope that I see more
yes,
of her.
yeah,
Because it's nice to see a different character, and
yes,
to finally see a Catian on the screen because we haven't
yes.
we don't actually see them outside of animation, do we?
This is the first time they've ever existed.
Yeah.
Then we see them in Star Trek 5 or 6, I think,
Okay.
as part of the Federation Council. They're
Right.
like some of the background incidental characters.
Okay. But then we don't ever see them as like a main character in any other series or even like a guest star. Because I
The
was trying to look,
the
but
only other time the only other time they show up
lower
is the
decks.
gal that I was going to say in the Kelvin verse
Oh
in
no,
the first JJ movie.
they show up in lower decks. It's a main character.
Oh,
The
good,
chief medical officer is one,
interesting.
and
Okay,
it's
but
brilliant.
I'm glad because yeah, in the JJ verse movies, um, the Kelvin verse, whatever you want to call it, in that first one, the gal that Kirk has a night with, um, theory,
Oh,
there are theories that I read at the time that the movie was out that was supposed to be Morass because okay, at this point in time, you have to understand the fan fiction that's happening to Star Trek in 1970s.
yeah,
Slash fiction is the thing, okay?
yeah.
Um, but the funny thing is that the second pairing behind Kirk slash Spock is Kirk slash Morass.
See, I didn't know that. That's my fact of the day. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. But yeah,
Yep.
I find it interesting that you know 99% of the time that we see a Cassian is in the cartoons,
Yes.
and
It's a
obviously she's in a role where she's on the comms. She's
She's taking over for Uhura,
yeah, and
which I mean, at the same time as I like that, because of how important Uhura is, it bugs me a little
yeah,
bit. It's one of those. It's silly, but when you have someone where Martin Luther King Jr. went to Nichelle Nichols and said, I know what's going on. I've heard. I know you want to quit the show, but we need you there.
yeah,
We need you there for the fight."
yeah,
To then replace her kind of unceremoniously does feel a bit off.
yeah,
Um, so I'm kind of glad that we haven't seen Marissa in live action
yeah,
later. But yeah, she's a great character, and again, she's another voice for Majel,
yeah.
and another point where Majel sort of puts her foot down and says, "It's not DC Fontana that's the mother of Star Trek. It's not Lucille Ball. It's me."
Yeah, very much.
Um, you know, where she's like, "Okay, Lucille Ball, lovely woman, godmother of Star Trek.
But I'm the
DC
mother.
Font, yeah,
Yeah,
you know." So yes, that's the thing. And now another one. Going forward in the episode now, when Ann Norrid, Winston's fiance, the security guard, uh, goes for counseling, when she goes to McCoy.
yes,
Now, this is two two things at once here. One, I like the fact that they keep up the fact that McCoy is the psychological support on the ship.
yeah,
That you know, Kirk asks him for psychological profiles. That
yeah.
the role that Deanna would later play, is still here being filled by McCoy.
And it is in Discovery as well. Colbert fills that role, and
Okay.
I like him. Like I like McCoy in that role.
Yeah,
I think it suits them.
yeah, and that understand. I haven't had the best week with vendors, so a Vendorian. Oh, one step off. Uh, but this thing, it's proof that he doesn't have any of the area knowledge that any of the Starfleet crew have.
Yeah,
When he just rips her stem to stern, and in animation, you can see that the animators were ready to make this woman cry
yeah,
because what McCoy, well, no, what the Vendorian says wearing McCoy's face
Yeah.
is, I mean, imagine if you went to counseling over a breakup and you were told that.
Yeah, as someone who works in
Yeah,
psychological therapies, it would be a bit worrying.
yeah,
But I find this scene is it's quite disturbing. I
mhm.
don't think it's quite meant to have been disturbing, but I think looking back at
I,
it from here back to then, it's quite disturbing that
I,
he says that. And obviously we know that it's not McCoy. But
right,
this character doesn't know that, and she takes
right,
the advice, and it doesn't sit well with me. I
and
don't.
no, not at all. And then, and also, we're, and in the next couple of scenes, we're going to get into more of my annoyance with it. But yeah, I don't like that this thing just absolutely, with a total lack of compassion,
Yeah,
rips her apart. And the problem is that, yeah, again, this week, not the best week with vendors. So I just kind of go, yes, vendors act like that all the time.
yeah,
I'm joking, obviously, but still. Uh, and then once he gets finished ripping her to shreds, Kirk and Spock come in because Kirk is worried about his mental state.
yeah,
Because after all, he's on security camera giving an order he doesn't remember,
yeah,
you know. And his first instinct is not, there's somebody on the ship with my face.
yeah,
It's, I'm having blackouts.
yeah,
This is a problem.
yeah,
I could endanger the ship.
yeah,
Spock, come with me. Scotty, you're in charge. Come on.
yeah, yeah. So, and his first thought is to go to McCoy to figure it out.
Yes.
Um, and what I kind of like, I feel like Kirk actually gets a little bit of character development in this episode because
Mm-hmm.
he's very confused. He's not quite cocksure as he normally is, and I kind
Yes.
of actually like the character slightly, for that reason. Because he's not quite as gung ho as he normally is. Yeah. So I think
It,
it's quite an interesting couple of scenes. And then obviously it's
yes.
when we have the Romulans show up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, um, when McCoy gets uh, KO'd and so on, when they find him, um, you know, they finally figure out that it's a Vendorian.
Yeah.
And, I have in my notes, Spock is correct. Vendors do practice to seize the wavelength. Oh, wait, I mean Vendorians. But the thing that annoys me with this one moment, how do they not know how many biobeds there are?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't get it that McCoy here has spent what 5 years in his sick bay. How does he
Right,
not recognize it?
right. I mean, McCoy is the only one that I can kind of excuse because he's just waking up from being,
Yeah.
whammied like that.
Yeah.
Spock,
Yes.
when Kirk is the one who notices. I mean, yes, I like the idea that Kirk knows every part of the ship so well that he can call out something small.
Yeah.
But an examination table is not small.
No, it's
You
it's
know,
it's not. It did strike me as a little bit weird that it chose a biobed and then they didn't realize it's
yes,
weird. But obviously they force the Vendorian to reveal its true form, and
yes,
obviously it escapes. They
yes.
they let it escape.
Well, I mean, on that one, I'll grant that maybe let it is a bit harsh. They did try to take him on with fists instead of with phasers, and they put up a good fight. The fact that they got tossed aside, you
Yeah.
have to see that the alien is the alien. And then he runs,
Yes. And then
and
obviously
then he
he's
runs. And now comes another point of nitpicky annoyance. Why does he become Carter again instead of grabbing a security guard?
I don't know.
Because I'm sorry, if I'm trying to run away on the Enterprise, I'm not going to show up and I'm not going to appear as the guy who was just brought aboard.
The only rationalization that I could come to is the fact that he knows that form so well. It was his default form.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
That
It
was the
does
only
make
thing I
sense
could
in that.
think of.
That's the only one. Because otherwise, I'm sorry. If you're trying to run away on the Enterprise, which would you rather be?
Yes,
Random Intruder of the Week or Lieutenant Kyle from the transporter room?
it makes no sense, and I think that's where the being messes up. Um,
Oh yeah. Except here's the problem. He doesn't mess up, and that's the worst thing when he confronts Anne again and starts gaslighting her.
yes.
Because there's no other word I have for it.
I'll let you take the lead on that because I that's the only word that I've got
Oh,
wrote down as gaslight.
yes, because he starts manipulating her immediately.
Hmm.
And the episode presents it like he's making some kind of impassioned confession to
Yes.
her about what happened. And all he's doing through the entire thing is just manipulating her emotions after two different times where, you know, okay, now she realizes that Carter at least was um, this alien.
Yeah.
She still is recovering from the fact that McCoy just ripped her apart, and she doesn't know that it was this alien. She doesn't know that that wasn't Dr. McCoy being uncharacteristically dickish. And then this thing says, "Oh, he loved you so much. I love you."
Yeah. It
And
yeah, it kind of
oh,
struck me. It kind of struck me really as really, really. Mm,
it was manipulative.
yeah, and I
It
really
was. It was.
it was a
I don't
really
like this character
yeah,
because of it.
it was a really uncomfortable 5 minutes of my life,
Yes.
and I was sat in my
Yes.
room. I was like,
Because I mean, I'm glad that I have never been through a situation in a relationship that bad.
yeah.
I hope you. I mean, I hope you haven't. I mean, yeah, yeah. I know that there is.
We all have things in our lives that are difficult.
Yes.
And this episode did, and this moment did very much strike me as something familiar. But we'll leave that there.
Yes.
Because it
Yes.
was an uncomfortable watch, and I hope that if
Yes.
anyone else felt uncomfortable, they got
Know that you're not alone.
yeah. It was very very uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
I feel very much like I don't want to say it's a sign of the times, but I think it very much is.
It was, and also it was a sign of. I think it's also a sign of Gene Roddenberry in some ways.
Yeah,
And I hate to say that because there are definite moments that I've heard about from Gene where he was a good man and a gentleman
yeah,
and just a good guy.
yeah,
At the same time, he's also a guy who uh, cheated on his wife, married her, and the only reason they stayed together was because she didn't let him go for this
yeah.
series. Um, you know, so
I think it shows the worst of Trek. This scene
yes,
is very much the worst of Trek. It's not it's not the only example of the worst of Trek.
no,
But I do think it's why I've not scored it as highly as maybe other episodes. Um, Especially because
I've
as it kind of goes on, this episode kind of gets more annoying for me. Obviously we've got the Romulans, stating that the ship now belongs to them. Um,
yeah.
you know,
Honestly, the Romulans are the best part of the episode.
yeah, and
I like that they.
I don't,
I like that we use the Romulans as the manipulative force
yeah,
rather than. And I like the fact that we're back to back with the Klingons from before, where yes, the Romulans are still using the Klingon ships like they did in the Enterprise incident, um, which is great. And they redesigned the logo so that it looks like a Romulan logo. I
yeah,
like that, and I like the fact that where the Klingons are very direct and combative
yeah,
and willing to use the super weapon and so on, the Romulans are more underhand.
yeah,
And I like that. I
yeah,
do. I think the Romulans really present the best parts of this episode
Yeah.
because, and the idea is that when you know that there's Romulans out there putting Spock in charge, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, and yeah, that was a thought that crossed my
But
mind that it was an interesting choice, and I think maybe it
mhm.
was done to unnerve the Romulans because obviously we now know what the Romulans look like. You know, it
Well, I mean, we do because by this point we've had two Romulan episodes in the original
yeah.
series. But
So
I do like that the Romulans are here and they're more open, but still the sneaky ones.
yeah,
And they know what Kirk is.
yes, yes, I did kind of like that reference that obviously they know what Kirk's about now. They know how to play him. They know that he's a
Yes.
bit tricky. Um, but yeah, and obviously this kind of episode continues. Um, and obviously the Vendorian escapes, but he's obviously disabled the Enterprise's deflector shields. So obviously
Yes.
he's left the ship um, vulnerable
Basically defenses.
to
Yeah.
attacks. And obviously the Romulans use it because they've not been given the ship as a chance to attack.
Attack and try to yes.
Which then leads
Because
me to another point that I found really weird. Because yes, the Vendorians can change their shape and all of this, but it changes its shape into a deflector shield that's got access to the ship.
and I'm
That's
gonna I agree with you completely, but I have a head canon for it.
okay. Let's hear the headcanon.
He didn't transform himself into the deflector screen. What he
Right,
did was he turned himself into the components that he had ripped out.
right. Okay.
So instead of being the shield itself, he's the deflector control rig that he had ripped out.
Yes.
Because by the way, then we saw him in a freaking Starfleet uniform there. Why didn't he use that the first time? Oh well, right?
Yes.
But
I think a lot
yes,
of
this.
this is down. I think a lot of this is plot points.
Oh yeah, it's all contrivance at this point,
Yeah.
and thankfully, the ship gets the better of the Romulans. They run away because, again, that's the thing that I like about the characterization of the Romulans versus the Klingons. Koloff disable one of his nacelles, big whoop, he's going to stand and fight.
Yeah.
The Romulans, you hurt them a little bit, they're going to go, huh, this is illogical.
Yeah.
Because even though, obviously at this point we haven't had as much of the connection between the Romulans and the Vulcans that we get later,
Yeah.
there is still always a logic
Yes.
to their reactions and to their behaviors. So they run away.
Yeah.
And Kirk is the one who figures out what the Vendorian did.
Yeah.
I don't know why,
Yeah.
but he did. And I I get the idea of why the Vendorian didn't um you know he tried to give his last minute face turn there
Yeah.
because I think it was Anne that convinced him. The
Yes.
fact that she didn't do the right thing and just gun him down for that attempt at gaslighting her
Yeah. It's
3 times.
it's frustrating, and obviously we find out that the Vendorian, obviously once it's back in its norm, well, once it's back in a form, and obviously they
Yeah.
can speak. We find out that it's not what was the phrase they used? It's not he's not a
It's a non-producer.
yeah, he's a
He's a
non-producer.
non-producer, yes.
So
And
he basically
everyone wants to feel useful.
yeah,
It's like, well, maybe the way you can feel useful is not manipulating people's emotions. How
yeah,
about that? Let's
yeah,
start
and
there.
it kind of felt a little bit like they were trying to give him a sob story to explain the fact
Oh yeah,
that he was basically a spy for the
definitely.
Romulans, and then that he tricked the ship,
Yeah,
he tricked Anne, he tricked everybody on board into going into the Romulan neutral zone. Um,
right.
yeah, it
And then
kind of struck me as a bit.
and and I don't like the manipulation at the end still because again, those gaslights are on
Yeah,
again when he and Anne have this thing and she's like, form doesn't seem important to me right now. It's like, girl, Form doesn't.
Yeah,
How about what he did to you emotionally just now?
yeah. And obviously, the
Come on.
Vidorian, the Vidorian, he like tries to manipulate her, going, "Oh well, we saved Winston. We did this. We kept him alive for a year, and I got very close to him. I've got his memories." And I'm like,
Oh yeah, you want to punch him in
yeah,
in whatever face he has.
yes,
So can I just say I don't like the character. I do like the design.
yes. I think it's
I
very,
like
and they
yeah,
couldn't have done it in the live action.
exactly. That's another thing. I like that this is another can't do that in live action moment. Um, I don't like the character. I
Yeah.
like the design.
I don't like
Um,
I don't like how this episode ends either.
no, he gets off way too easy.
He gets off way too easy, and Anne is obviously says, "Oh well, I'll guard him," and I'm like, "Girl, no,
No,
run, run,
this,
red flag." I'm gonna get,
yes,
I'm gonna have to get some red flags. I've decided.
yes,
I've decided for the animated series and I'm just gonna get red flags, and if there is a red flag
yes,
moment, I'm gonna start waving them.
yes. I agree because that's what this is, and it's honestly, it was really funny because song from a few years ago, "New Rules" came into my head, and it's like, if you're under him, you're not getting over him, lady. What are
Mm,
you doing with
yeah,
this alien?
I think very much like
And I'm
yourself
just now like,
and how I scored the episode. Do you want to give your scores?
yes. Now my score is a little bit high for what it should be,
Yeah.
honestly, because okay, the reason I scored it a 3.5 out of 5.
Which I think we need to tell everyone why I've allowed why I've allowed halves. Because
Okay.
I normally don't allow halves. But I think I need to bring in halves because I think some points deserve only half a point. So we have
Yes.
bought in halves, and this is going to be across any episode reviews. There are now going to be halves, which
Yes.
then that doesn't mean I'm going to go back and allow you to edit scores. Just so
Nope.
you know, Ben is not allowed to
Nope.
edit scores. He's not allowed, but we still only do go up to
I won't let
five.
him.
So
Okay.
there isn't a 5.5. It's
Nope.
just one
No. The the only episode that gets above a 5 is Yesteryear, and that's a 6 out of 5, and it stays there.
five.
But
Okay,
no, this
what's
is
your score?
3.5 out of 5
3.5.
because yeah, because the problem is the reason I don't like the episode is all in the text. It's all in the story.
Yeah,
I don't like the character of the Vendorian.
yeah,
I don't like the emotional manipulation that it pulls.
yeah,
But I don't think we're supposed to entirely like the character
yeah,
or entirely trust the character. So the character's written well as someone we're not supposed to trust or like.
yeah,
Therefore, it's a good episode.
yes.
I like
I
that there is a overall plot as
Yeah,
well, and that the reason and everything has a reason for happening.
yeah.
The only thing is the point that I gave it, and I don't know what the graphic is for this one, but I said it's 3.5 suddenly appearing biobeds out of 5.
Yeah, I didn't do Suddenly Appearing Biobeds. I did Winston, Carter
Okay,
Winston. So
okay,
I've given this it's the same score actually. 3.5 Carter Winstons out of 5. Pretty much for the same reasons. And if I thought I could have given lower with a justified reason,
oh, absolutely. Yes,
I would have given lower. I don't necessarily think it deserves the score that I've given, but the plot, the graphics, the animation, it deserves that because some of the scenes that we've seen are absolutely amazing. Like Kirk's quarters, I was
yes,
really impressed by. Obviously, I've seen footage of Kirk's quarters from the original
right,
series because obviously I run a
right,
Connie ship, so I've spent a lot of time looking at Connie images.
yes.
I thought the image of Kirk's quarters was beautifully done.
Oh,
I
yeah, it was absolutely excellently done.
there's scenes that we have the battles. I think they're very well done. So I
The,
don't
the,
necessarily think I'm giving the score what it should have been because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it entirely comes down to the fact that the gaslighting,
yeah.
just
There's a lot of red flags.
the emotional manipulation, the gaslighting, and the fact that he gets off.
Yeah,
Because the way that I would have rewritten the ending of this episode to kind of fix it a little bit. Now, understand, I wouldn't have fixed it, but it's just the way I would have done the ending is instead of just getting off scot free and having Anne be his guard, if the Vendorian had been badly injured in the fight to save the Enterprise,
yeah,
and where he had taken on for Carter, if Anne had taken and said, I'll take care of him,
yeah,
that would have been a slightly better ending.
yeah,
Still manipulative, still wrong, but at least then we would have had some proof of atonement.
yeah,
Because that's the other thing we don't get here.
yeah. There is
There's no atonement.
no none. There's none, and I don't think any of the characters get any type of atonement. You know, Anne doesn't get that because she kind of
No.
just she goes
No,
back.
Anne did nothing wrong. Anne
You know,
did nothing wrong.
but
So
you know what I mean. Like she didn't get kind of any character development in
yeah,
moving past this. She's still stuck
yeah,
5 years ago.
yes,
So she's still stuck there, you know, and the Vendorian. It's frustrating as a writer
yes,
because you try your best to make sure that all your characters are covered and all plot points are tied up in a neat little bow. This very much didn't happen with this episode.
yeah. Yeah, this episode there is a lot that's right and a lot that's wrong. And I think I don't want to say a modern writer, but I think a more emotionally aware writer should have taken it. Um, in a sense, I kind of do like how much I dislike the Vendorian as McCoy,
Yeah,
especially because that's the scene that still sticks in my craw
yeah,
when it proves that McCoy is the psychologist and that you can't just randomly appear aboard a starship and start doling out psychological advice.
yes,
That's the one thing.
yeah.
So yeah, it's an episode.
Yeah, it's an
you
uncomfortable
know?
it's an uncomfortable episode, but I am looking forward to the episodes that we are going to watch next. Obviously, you've already
Yes,
watched them. I haven't because
yes.
I have
Well,
not had enough
I
time.
I will give you one hint as to the next episode.
Yeah.
This is the episode that Walter Koenig
Yes,
wrote.
I'm actually looking at the titles now. So it's the Infinite Vulcan and
Yep.
the Magics of Megatu, which
Magus. Yes.
which I'm actually really excited about because this episode actually inspired a mission on SS Mary Rose where I had
Interesting.
yes, where I've not seen it, but I like the fact that we had magic and
Okay.
and
Well,
she's still a character who might come back in the future.
interesting. I like it. I like it. All right.
So
So
I'm
there we are.
I'm interested to see this, and I might
Yes.
actually watch them tonight. I might watch them before I go to sleep
You should.
because
You should.
it's obviously getting on close to 10 o'clock here, so I am very much gonna
Yep.
head towards bed. But
Yes. Go
yeah,
skedaddle. Yes.
I think this was definitely an interesting set of episodes. You know, we had an episode that scored 9 out of 10, and then obviously we've had this
Yes.
episode that scored 7.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
And and it scored 7 only because, as much as we both hate it, we both recognize the quality in it.
Yeah, it's an interesting one that we've kind of got to we've kind of had an uncomfortable episode, but we've had to score it highly, um, more
Mm-hmm.
so than previous episodes because what did we score the last couple? We scored
Well, okay. I let's see. It was we agreed on a lot of our scores.
yes,
So Beyond the Farthest Star was 3 out of 5.
okay,
Yesteryear 6 out of 5. One of our planets is missing. I think yeah, that was a 3 out of 5.
yeah,
And the Lorelei signal a 4 out of 5.
okay. So this is kind of midway, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's not the worst episode, but it's not the best, which is good because I
no,
definitely
no, it's
I
it's
don't
it's not the
necessarily.
worst. It's definitely not the worst possible episode.
Yeah,
Um, it's not the heights that this episode gets to.
yeah,
It's not the heights that this series gets to because I think either if the Vendorian had been called out for the emotional manipulation at the end, or had been wounded, it would have been a much better episode.
yeah.
Otherwise, yes. Um, I look forward to your comments on the Infinite Vulcan, especially
Yes.
um, because you haven't watched Space Seed, have you?
No. I've literally watched. Okay, let's find the episodes that I have watched.
Yes.
So
Let's define them.
I have watched. I've got people summoning me. Let's have a look. I need to get around the summons.
Yes, and actually, yes. Speaking of summons, we should be writing characters.
Okay, so I have watched The Balance of Terror, The
Okay.
Enterprise Incident, I Mud, and then I've watched the episode where Kirk's brother appears because I watched that too.
Operation Annihilate.
Yes, those are
Operation Annihilate.
yeah. So those are the four episodes that I've seen.
Okay, so you've never seen Space Seed.
Okay.
Have you seen Star Trek 2?
Yes, but it was like 20 years ago.
Okay, but you have a vague knowledge. All
Yeah.
right, so that's going to be interesting. Um, yeah, honestly, this is yeah, there are a couple of interesting episodes that are coming up.
Okay.
Um, and I look forward to it.
Yeah. So the episodes that I've got left to watch that are on the list for the original series are um Mud's Women, For the World is
Yes,
Hollow and I Have Touched the
I've
Sky.
touched the sky. Yes,
Um Who Destroys God Who Gods Destroy.
yeah, Whom Gods Destroy. Yeah,
A Piece of the Action. Oh, I lied.
a
I've
piece of the action is a great episode.
I've not I don't think I've seen the Enterprise incident. I think I've seen City on the Edge of
Now,
Tomorrow.
City on the Edge of Forever and Balance of Terror. You have not seen the Enterprise incident,
Yeah,
which is
no.
kind of a sequel to Balance of Terror.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but it is on the list. And
Have
I've got
Have you watched Journey to Babel?
no.
That one should be.
Okay.
Um,
I've
and
got Mary and Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. They're on the list.
oh, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield is a great one.
Yeah.
Miri, I kind of want to be there when you guys review that because
Okay.
there are a couple of little there. I don't want to be there to comment on the story. I want to comment on like the meta text of it
Okay.
because there are a couple of things. Okay, this is one of those wonderful things of having parents who were boomers and who were Trekkies, where I know some of the cultural references
Yeah.
that are being made, like the fact that Miri, where the sets are, you know, would really have been disturbing to people in 66, 67 to see it in sort of a post-apocalyptic state.
Hmm.
So yeah, uh, another episode that you probably should watch, The Squire of Gothos.
I also want to watch the one with the cloud miners.
Oh, The
Um,
Cloud Miners. Yep.
yeah, I want to watch that one because
Honestly,
I've
there's a whole bunch that I think you and I should watch together, maybe more than other people, or
and
maybe that
I
a
want to
group of
also
us should
see
watch.
I want to also see the episode with Vampire Cloud. Because both of those
Okay.
ones
Oh, oh, wait,
I've
you mean
I've I've done a lot
the
of
one with
weird things on Rosie that I've picked parts of the
Mhm.
original series because I feel they've
Okay.
not been done, but I've actually never seen the episodes. Memory Alpha has been a great tool for me
Yeah.
because I've got characters that are from Ardana. I've got a vampire cloud that has appeared.
Okay.
Obviously, it's not there anymore because I've got rid of it. But
Yeah.
it basically destroyed um, the first version of SS Mary Rose in 2243. Um,
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Um.
it's a bit of a
Another.
typography one, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I've always taken points from the original series, but I've never actually seen it,
Mhm.
which was why this challenge came about.
Yes. And I think honestly there are some that you where I think when I say we should watch them together, I don't just mean we should watch them and then review them. I mean literally. I have the DVDs.
We've got it on
I can
Netflix, so it's
yes, but it's very hard to do like a voice chat and so on while streaming on Netflix
oh
because I
well,
don't think you can stream.
I've got the TV, so
Yeah. See, what I'm thinking is literally like we go through it together,
okay.
so that because there are some moments, like the enemy within, where oh yeah, you want the red flags, get the biggest red
I will.
flag you've got.
I'm gonna go on Amazon. I'm gonna buy some now.
That's a good idea. They help.
Yes. So
uh,
I think I think we'll leave that there. But yeah, it's definitely
yes,
we've got lots of plans for this, and I'm
yes,
excited to
absolutely,
see where we're going with it. It should be good.
yes,
Um,
yes,
yeah,
absolutely, and I look forward to our next episode when we talk about the Infinite Vulcan and the
yes.
Magics of Megas 2.
It
And
probably won't
hope
be next week because we've got
no,
Christmas, so it'll probably
right.
be
Well, yeah. Next week we're gonna have a well. I'm so this week we're doing episode 3. So probably Kittimer
yep.
review next week, and then episode 4 after that. Or do you want to do a Doctor Who in between?
Oh no, so Doctor Who is all ready to go out next month. No, so well, let's get my diary up. So, we have on the 26th, sorry, the 19th at 8 a.m. GMT time is our second episode. The
Cool.
26th is the Doctor Who episode that we did on the TV movie, and then this
Nice.
episode goes out the 4th of March.
Nice. Okay. So we're ahead.
Yeah, we are.
And another series that I think might be interesting to have people watch or miniseries. Have you ever seen V?
The
Yeah,
Yes, but I've not seen the older one. I've seen the new one.
that's the one I'm talking about. The
Okay,
old
yeah.
one.
But
Uh,
it's been a very long time because my television viewing is a bit strange. It kind of goes a bit strange about a decade ago because I worked on cruise ships. So I didn't see a lot of television live for like 3 years. Um, I downloaded it on the as a pirate.
oh,
Um,
of course.
so
How do you think
yeah,
I
so
watch my stuff?
I didn't necessarily watch a lot of stuff when it came out. Um, but yeah, I have seen it. I don't have it on DVD or anything, but I might have a look and see if it's available on Netflix or Amazon Prime free. Um, if not, I'm sure I can find it
Oh,
somewhere.
if not, don't worry. You have a source.
Okay, but yes, I think we should leave that there now. Obviously, because
Yep.
we don't condone being a pirate or anything like that. Um,
Yo ho and a bottle of
yes,
rum.
even though I do have an accent that sounds vaguely like a pirate, according to several people. But yeah, so until next time, stay safe, keep writing.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye bye.